You know that exhaustion that sleep doesn't cure, the kind that settles deep in your bones after another night of promising yourself, "This time will be different." You wake up determined to pray, to focus, to resist, and by mid-afternoon, the same pull returns, the same craving, the same click, the same scroll, the same compromise. And then comes the shame, that crushing familiar weight that whispers you are weaker than everyone else, that you are a fraud. Let me tell you something you desperately need to hear. You are not alone in this, and you are not weak. Some of the most devoted souls in Christian history have waged this exact war, and they lost many battles. The difference is that they learned something you haven't been taught yet. The flesh cannot be defeated by sheer willpower. It must be outmaneuvered, starved, and redirected. Here is the uncomfortable truth.
If this message is speaking to your heart, I want to encourage you to take another step in your spiritual life. We have prepared the devotional 30 Days with Spurgeon, Intimacy with God, with daily reflections inspired in the Word of God and in the writings of the Prince of Preachers. Every day you will find direction, comfort, and encouragement for your faith. The link is in the description. Acquire it now and begin this day of spiritual transformation.
Your desires are not just temptations that knock on your door. They are architects. Every time you give in, you hand them a blueprint. They build a stronger room in your mind. They install new locks. They dim the light. And before you realize it, you are living in a prison you constructed yourself. One where you can hear the voice of God from outside, but you feel too exhausted to find the door. The most dangerous part? Many people inside the church suffer in silence with hidden lusts, compulsive cravings, and divided affections. They sit in pews, sing worship songs, and nod at sermons while their hearts are secretly chained to a screen, a bottle, a fantasy, or a grudge. They pray for purity, but they keep falling into the same compromises. They try to love God with all their heart, but the gravitational pull of worldly desire always returns. And deep down, that question haunts them. Why can't I overcome this constant battle against my own flesh? If that question stirs something in you right now, pay attention, because the answer is not what you think. It is not about trying harder. It is not about a new productivity hack or a stricter schedule. It is about something far more ancient, far more practical, and far more powerful than anything you have attempted. I want to introduce you to a man who understood this war intimately. His name was Charles Spurgeon, the Prince of Preachers. He stood before crowds of thousands, his voice thundering with conviction, his words piercing hearts. But what you may not know is that this giant of faith fought a brutal, lifelong battle against his own mind. He suffered from crushing depression so severe that he would sometimes be bedridden for weeks, unable to speak. He faced intense anxiety that clawed at his thoughts, and he wrestled with the same carnal appetites of fallen nature that you and I contend with. Yet through decades of pastoral ministry and intense personal devotion, he developed practical spiritual habits, simple, scriptural, but extremely powerful, that helped him mortify unruly passions and redirect his deepest hungers toward Jesus Christ. These were not abstract theological theories. They were survival strategies forged in the furnace of real suffering. And here is what will change everything for you. These habits are not about relying on fragile human willpower. They are about intentional spiritual discipline rooted in the cross. They are about building a life where your desires are not your master, but your servant. In this video, we will uncover these practices together, not as a history lesson, not as a lecture, but as a step-by-step guide to mastering the desires that today seem impossible to tame. By the time we reach the final practice, you will understand what separates those who remain enslaved to their impulses from those who truly walk in the liberating victory of the Spirit. But before we go further, I need you to be honest with yourself. Not with me, with yourself. Answer this question silently in the privacy of your own heart. What specific worldly desire or habit is currently warring against your spiritual peace? Name it. Do not hide it. Do not soften it, because you cannot master a desire you refuse to acknowledge. Hold that answer in your mind. We will come back to it, and if this message resonates with you, if you feel that quiet battle raging inside you right now, then I have a favor to ask. Not for the algorithm, not for vanity, but because there are people in your contacts list, people you know and love, who are secretly drowning in compromise and desperately need to hear these truths. A simple like on this video will help this lesson reach them. Someone you care about is fighting a quiet battle that these practices can break. Stay with me. The next practice may be the key you have been searching for. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What are you feeding your mind right now? Not just today, but this week, this month, this year. What images, sounds, and words have you allowed to take up residence in your thoughts? Because here is a principle that Spurgeon understood with absolute clarity. The soul is a garden, and whatever you plant will grow. If you plant seeds of filth, you will harvest a forest of craving. If you plant seeds of holiness, you will harvest a harvest of peace. Spurgeon once said, "I would rather be the meanest creature in the world and have fellowship with God than be the mightiest monarch in the universe and be without Him." But he also knew that fellowship with God does not happen by accident. It happens by discipline. And the first discipline, the foundational practice that everything else builds upon, is the filter of the mind. You see, most people believe that temptation begins in the moment of desire, that it strikes like lightning, sudden and uncontrollable, but that's a lie. Temptation is a process. It begins with a glance, then a thought, then a dwelling, then a craving, then a decision. And by the time you feel the full force of the desire, the battle is already half lost, because you have already given it your attention. Spurgeon understood that the battlefield is not in your hands or your feet, it is in your mind. The mind is the gateway, and the gateway must be guarded, not occasionally, not when you feel strong, constantly, relentlessly, because your enemy does not sleep and neither should your vigilance. Here is the practical step. Begin each day with a deliberate act of mental filtration. Before you check your phone, before you open your email, before you consume any content, spend the first 5 minutes of your morning filling your mind with something pure. Read a passage of Scripture. Meditate on a single verse. Recite a prayer of surrender. This is not a ritual. It is a strategy. You are programming your mind to default toward God before the world has a chance to program it toward sin. But the filter does not stop in the morning. It must operate all day long, and this is where most people fail. They assume that because they are not actively sinning, they are safe. But passivity is not purity. The mind that is not actively filled with good is automatically being filled with evil. There is no neutral ground in the spiritual life. You are either being sanctified or you are being seduced. So here is the question you must ask yourself every time you pick up your phone, every time you sit down to watch something, every time you engage in conversation. Is this feeding my spirit or starving it? That single question, asked honestly, will transform your life because it forces you to move from passive consumption to active discernment. Spurgeon practiced this with radical intensity. He was known to be incredibly selective about what he read and what he allowed into his thoughts. He understood that the mind is like a reservoir. Everything that flows in will eventually flow out. And he wanted his reservoir to overflow with the living water of Christ, not the stagnant pools of worldly entertainment. Now, I know what you are thinking, but I cannot control every thought. I am surrounded by a culture that bombards me with filth. That is true. You cannot control what enters your field of vision, but you can control what you dwell on. A thought is like a bird that flies over your head. You cannot stop it from flying over, but you can absolutely stop it from building a nest in your hair. This is the practice of the filter. When an impure thought arrives, you do not entertain it. You do not argue with it. You do not try to suppress it by sheer force. Instead, you replace it immediately with a truth from Scripture, with a hymn, with a prayer, with a mental image of Christ on the cross. The mind cannot hold two opposing thoughts at the same time. When you flood it with light, the darkness has no choice but to recede. This is not about perfection. It is about direction. And here is the beautiful promise. The more you practice this filter, the weaker the intrusive thoughts become. They lose their grip. They lose their power. Because you have trained your mind to default toward God, and the cravings that once felt overwhelming begin to feel foreign. But I must warn you, this practice will feel unnatural at first. It will feel like swimming against a current. Because your flesh has been conditioned for years to accept certain thoughts without resistance. But do not be discouraged. The first week is the hardest. The second week is easier. And by the third month, you will notice a profound shift, not just in your thoughts, but in your desires themselves. The filter of the mind is not a quick fix. It is a daily discipline, but it is the foundation upon which everything else stands. Without it, no other practice will hold. With it, you have taken the first decisive step toward mastering the desires that have held you captive. Now, before we move to the next practice, I want you to do something. Look at the phone in your hand. Look at the apps you have installed. Look at the content you consume and ask yourself, is this helping me or hurting me? Be honest, because tomorrow we are going to talk about a practice that will take this filter to a deeper level. A practice that Spurgeon called the secret of his spiritual survival. And it might be the most uncomfortable thing you hear today. Let me ask you a direct question. When you pray, what do you actually say? If you are like most believers, your prayers are vague, hurried, and scattered. You ask for safety, for provision, for peace. But you rarely name the specific battle you are fighting. You pray for purity in general terms, but you never bring the specific lust, the specific craving, the specific habit before the throne of God and say, this one, right here, I need victory over this. Spurgeon would call that a wasted prayer. Not because God does not hear it, but because it is not aimed at the target. He understood that prayer is not a spiritual formality. It is a weapon. And a weapon that is not aimed is a weapon that does not hit its mark. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Many of you have been praying generic prayers for years, and your desires have not changed because you have never confronted them directly in prayer. You have prayed for God to bless your day, but you have not prayed for God to slay the specific idol that is stealing your affection. You have prayed for peace, but you have not prayed against the specific thought pattern that is robbing you of that peace. Spurgeon's practice was radically different. He called it the prayer of specific warfare. When he felt a desire rising within him, he did not simply ask for strength to resist. He brought that very desire before God and named it. He exposed it. He said, Lord, this craving is warring against my soul. I cannot defeat it, but you can. Break its power over me. There is something profoundly powerful about naming your sin before God. It strips it of its secrecy. It removes its shame. It drags it into the light. And in that light, its power begins to crumble because sin thrives in the shadows. It grows in the dark corners of the heart where no one sees, no one knows, and no one confronts it. But when you bring it into the presence of God and speak its name, you are declaring war. But here is the second part of this practice, and it is just as important. Spurgeon did not only pray against his desires, he also prayed toward his desires. What do I mean by that? He prayed that God would redirect his appetite. He understood that you cannot simply empty a heart. You must fill it. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you pray for the removal of a desire but do not pray for the installation of a greater one, you will simply trade one craving for another. So Spurgeon would pray, "Lord, take this hunger for sin and transform it into a hunger for you. Take this craving for pleasure and turn it into a craving for your presence. Take this desire for control and convert it into a desire for surrender." He understood that the human heart is designed for worship. The question is never whether you will worship. The question is what you will worship. And the most effective way to stop worshiping an idol is not to simply smash the idol. It is to replace it with the living God. This is where focused prayer becomes transformative. It is not about repeating words. It is about engaging your will, your emotions, and your imagination in a conversation with God about the deepest longings of your soul. It is about saying, "God, I want to want you. I want to desire you more than I desire this sin. Change my appetite." And here is the promise that Spurgeon clung to. God is not indifferent to this prayer. He does not mock your weakness. He does not turn away from your struggle. He is drawn to the honest cry of a desperate heart. Psalm 34 says that He is near to the brokenhearted, but you must be broken. You must be specific. You must be real. Now, let me give you a practical structure for this focused prayer. It is simple, but it is powerful. First, set aside a specific time each day. Not a vague intention, but a scheduled appointment. Even 5 minutes is enough to begin. Second, before you speak, take a moment to identify the single strongest desire that is currently warring against your peace. Name it. Write it down if you have to. Third, bring that desire before God and say, "Lord, this is my battle. I cannot win it alone. Break its hold on me." Fourth, and this is crucial, do not leave the prayer without asking God to replace that desire with a deeper hunger for Him. "Lord, make me want you more than I want this." This is not a magic formula. It is a discipline, and like all disciplines, it requires repetition. You will not experience overnight transformation, but you will experience gradual, unmistakable change. The cravings that once dominated your thoughts will begin to lose their edge. The compulsions that once controlled your actions will begin to weaken, because you are no longer fighting them alone. You are fighting them with the power of focused, specific, relentless prayer. But there is one more practice, the final one, that Spurgeon considered the crown of all spiritual discipline. It is the practice that holds everything else together, and it is the one thing that separates those who remain enslaved to their impulses from those who walk in true liberating victory. I have saved it for last because it is the most powerful, and it deserves your full attention. Do not close this video yet. The next practice may be the very thing that finally breaks the chains you have been carrying for years. There is a word that has nearly disappeared from modern Christian vocabulary. It sounds harsh, almost violent. It is the word mortification. And if you want to master your desires, you must understand it, embrace it, and practice it. Because without it, every other discipline will eventually collapse under the weight of your own flesh. Spurgeon did not shy away from this word. He preached it. He lived it. He understood that the battle against sinful desires is not a negotiation. It is a war. And in war, you do not simply ask the enemy to leave. You do not hope he will get tired and go away. You must actively, deliberately, and ruthlessly cut off his supply lines. You must starve him. You must mortify him. What does mortification mean? It comes from the Latin word mortificare, which means to put to death. The Apostle Paul used this exact language when he wrote, "For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live." Notice the active language. You do not wait for the deeds to die on their own. You put them to death. It is a violent, intentional, ongoing act. Here is where most people go wrong. They try to manage their desires. They try to moderate them. They try to keep them at a safe distance, hoping they will not erupt at inconvenient moments. But Spurgeon would say that this is a fatal mistake. You cannot moderate sin. You cannot tame it. You cannot keep it as a pet. Sin is not a wild animal that can be domesticated. It is a cancer that must be excised. It is a poison that must be expelled. It is an enemy that must be killed. The practice of mortification begins with a radical decision. You must decide once and for all that certain things are no longer negotiable in your life, not because you are trying to earn God's favor, not because you are trying to be religiously impressive, but because you recognize that these things are killing you, and you choose to cut them off. Jesus himself said it with devastating clarity. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. He was not speaking literally about mutilating your body. He was speaking about the radical surgical removal of anything that leads you into sin, even if it feels like losing a part of yourself. What does this look like in practical terms? It means deleting the app that leads you into temptation, even if you enjoy it. It means ending the relationship that pulls you away from God, even if it hurts. It means changing your route to avoid the place that triggers your craving. It means canceling the subscription, unfollowing the account, walking away from the conversation. It means making decisions that feel extreme to the outside world, but feel like life to your soul. Spurgeon called this cutting off the right hand. He knew that the flesh would scream in protest. It would tell you that you are being too strict, too radical, too extreme. But he also knew that the flesh is a liar. The flesh will always tell you that you can handle just a little more. You can watch just one more episode. You can have just one more drink. You can text just one more time. But the flesh is not your friend. It is your enemy, and you must treat it as such. Here is the key to mortification that most people miss. It is not about sheer willpower. It is about the Spirit. Paul said, "By the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body." You cannot do this in your own strength. You have tried that, and you have failed. But the Holy Spirit empowers you to do what you cannot do alone. He gives you the strength to say no when everything in you wants to say yes. He gives you the wisdom to see the trap before you step into it. He gives you the courage to make the radical cut. But mortification is not a one-time event. It is a lifestyle. Every day you must wake up and renew your commitment to put to death the desires that wage war against your soul. Every day you must identify the weak points, the vulnerable areas, the places where you are most likely to stumble. And every day you must take deliberate action to fortify those areas. This is exhausting work. It is relentless, and it is why so many people give up. They try mortification for a week, experience the pain of the cut, and then retreat back to the comfort of their compromise. But Spurgeon would say that the pain of the cut is nothing compared to the pain of continued slavery. The temporary discomfort of discipline is far better than the permanent agony of bondage. And here is the beautiful promise that sustains this practice. The more you mortify the flesh, the weaker it becomes. The cravings lose their intensity. The temptations lose their appeal. The desires that once felt overwhelming begin to feel foreign, even repulsive. You are not just managing your sin, you are killing it. And what grows in its place is a new hunger, a new appetite, a new desire for the things of God. But there is one final practice, the crown of all disciplines, that makes mortification sustainable. It is the practice that turns this war from a grim duty into a joyful pursuit. It is the practice that Spurgeon called the secret of his life. And it is the practice that will transform your battle from a cycle of failure into a path of victory. Stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this last practice is the one that changes everything. You have been fighting. You have been filtering your thoughts, praying with specificity, and cutting off the hands that lead you to sin. And you are exhausted. You wonder if this battle will ever end. You wonder if you will ever wake up and not have to fight. And I want to tell you something that might surprise you. The battle does not end, but it changes. It transforms from a war of resistance into a feast of satisfaction. This is the final practice, the crown of all disciplines, the secret that Spurgeon guarded with his life. It is the practice of substitution through satisfaction, and it is the only practice that can sustain you for the long haul. Here is the truth that most Christians never grasp. You cannot defeat desire with denial alone. You cannot simply say no and expect to be free. The human heart was created to desire. It was designed to crave. It was built to hunger. The question is not whether you will desire. The question is what you will desire. And the only way to permanently weaken a sinful desire is to replace it with a greater, more satisfying one. Spurgeon understood this with profound depth. He knew that the reason people return to their sins again and again is not because they lack willpower. It is because they have not found anything better. They are still hungry. They are still thirsty. They have been trying to starve their appetites, but they have not been feeding their souls. And a starving soul will always return to whatever it believes will satisfy it. So what is the solution? It is not just to say no to sin. It is to say yes to Christ. It is to feast on His presence, His promises, His beauty, and His love until the shallow pleasures of sin lose their appeal. It is to taste and see that the Lord is good, and to discover that His goodness is sweeter than anything the world can offer. Spurgeon called this the feast of substitution. He would say that the best way to overcome a craving is not to focus on the craving, but to focus on Christ. When you feel the pull of lust, do not just fight it. Run to Jesus and behold His purity. When you feel the pull of greed, do not just resist it. Run to Jesus and behold His riches. When you feel the pull of pride, do not just suppress it. Run to Jesus and behold His humility. When you feel the pull of anxiety, do not just calm yourself. Run to Jesus and behold His sovereignty. This is not a passive practice. It is an active pursuit. It requires you to know Christ intimately, not just know about Him. It requires you to spend time in His Word, not just read it. It requires you to meditate on His character, not just memorize verses. It requires you to cultivate a relationship with Him that is real, personal, and deeply satisfying. And here is the glorious promise. The more you feast on Christ, the less appetite you will have for sin, not because you are suppressing your desires, but because you are satisfying them. You are filling your soul with something so good, so rich, so fulfilling that the cheap imitations of the world begin to taste like ashes in your mouth. The things that once attracted you will begin to repel you. The things that once held you captive will begin to lose their grip. Spurgeon lived this practice daily. Despite his severe depression, despite his intense spiritual warfare, despite the relentless attacks of the enemy, he found his anchor in the person of Jesus Christ. He would spend hours in prayer, not just asking for things, but simply being in the presence of God. He would meditate on the cross, on the resurrection, on the promises of Scripture, until his soul was saturated with the love of Christ. And from that place of satisfaction, he was able to resist the temptations that would have overwhelmed a weaker man. Now, let me be honest with you. This practice is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires time. It requires you to say no to the immediate gratification of sin and yes, to the delayed but far greater gratification of Christ. But I promise you, the reward is worth it, because when you taste the goodness of God, you will never be satisfied with the empty pleasures of this world again. So here is your final assignment. Today, right now, before you close this video, take a moment to do this. Think of the specific desire that has been warring against you, the one you identified at the beginning. Now, instead of just asking God to remove it, ask Him to show you more of Himself. Say this prayer: Lord, I am hungry. I am thirsty, but I have been trying to satisfy my hunger with things that cannot satisfy. Show me your beauty, reveal your goodness. Fill my soul with your presence until I no longer desire the things that are killing me. Let me feast on you. This is the practice that separates those who remain enslaved from those who walk in victory. It is not about trying harder, it is about tasting deeper. It is not about denying your desires. It is about redirecting them to their true source. It is not about willpower, it is about worship. You can master your desires, not through your own strength, but through the power of Christ living in you. And as you practice these habits, the filter of the mind, the discipline of focused prayer, the weapon of mortification, and the feast of substitution, you will find that the chains that once bound you are falling away. You will find that the cravings that once controlled you are losing their power. And you will find that the peace you have been searching for is not a distant dream, but a present reality. This is the liberating victory of the Spirit. This is the life that Spurgeon lived. And this is the life that is available to you today. If this message has helped you, I ask you to do one thing. Share it, not for me, not for the algorithm, but for the person in your life who is quietly drowning in compromise, who is too ashamed to speak, who is fighting a battle they think no one understands. Your simple act of liking or sharing this video could be the hand that reaches into their darkness and pulls them into the light. Someone you know needs to hear these words. Be the reason they find them. And now, go, feast on Christ, and let your desires be mastered by the only one who can truly satisfy them.